What's going on, everybody? Kevin here, and today we're going to be exploring Bryce Canyon. This beautiful park is in southwest Utah, and it's one of the most unique places in all of the state. Bryce Canyon is known for its bright orange hoodoos scattered across the landscapes, making this place look like another planet. Bryce Canyon is one of the few parks that you can visit in a single day. I would recommend a few days here, but if you're doing a Utah road trip and you're trying to fit in as much as possible, you can definitely get away with one day here. Most of the places on this list will be quick places to see and not as much hiking as my typical travel guides, making Bryce a very accessible and family-friendly park. But real quick, if you could give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, I'd really appreciate it. I have a ton of other travel guides, top 10s, and vlogs on the channel. But anyways, let's dive right into my top 10 places to visit in Bryce Canyon. First up on the list is going to be Bryce Point, which is one of my favorite overlooks in the entire park. Once you make your way to the parking lot, you'll have less than a quarter mile of a walk on a paved walkway to the end of Bryce Point. You'll have beautiful views along the entire walkway, but once you reach the end, you will have stunning views of the hoodoos and park in 360 degrees. You will be surrounded by a panorama of beautiful landscapes. Next up is going to be Sunset Point in Wall Street, and as the name suggests, this is a great place to watch the sunset with minimal effort, might I add. This is another overlook that you only have to walk a few feet away from the parking lot, but I did group this together with Wall Street because Wall Street is just a switchback or two below Sunset Point. If you're on the right side of the Sunset Point overlook, you can see some of Wall Street, but to actually get to Wall Street, it's along the Navajo Loop Trail, which I'll touch on more later in the video. But it's an awesome stop. At Wall Street, there's a hole in the rock that gives a beautiful framing to the hoodoos behind it, and Wall Street itself is an awesome view of tight switchbacks that make for some awesome photos. At number 3, we have Natural Bridge, which is a beautiful 85-foot tall arch rock formation. This also does not require any hiking to get to. The overlook is right at the parking lot. Natural Bridge is towards the very end of the Scenic Park Drive, which means this is not open year-round. At a glance, you might not expect it, but Bryce Canyon sits between 8,000 and 10,000 feet above sea level, so the park actually gets quite a bit of snow, and the second part of the park, including Natural Bridge, is closed for many months of the year. Next up, we have a Scenic Flight from Ruby's Inn, and this is by far the most unique thing to do on this list. I don't know anyone else who has done this. It seems like a pretty low-key, kind of hidden gem type of activity in the park. A few years ago, my buddy Brian and I stopped at Ruby's Inn to get lunch, and we saw a sign for scenic helicopter rides. At the time, to our surprise, it only cost between $100 and $150 per person. The price might be different now, but for a 30 or so minute helicopter ride, that's a bargain. If I'm not mistaken, the aircraft doesn't actually fly inside of the national park boundary, but since Bryce Canyon is a very skinny and long park, you basically just fly parallel to the park. This gives you amazing views during the entire flight, and you can do it year round, so if you're willing to be cold, I definitely recommend doing this in the winter like we did. At number 5, we have the Navajo Loop and Queen's Garden Trail. This trail is 3.1 miles with 649 feet of elevation gain, and if you had to do one trail with hopes of seeing as much of the park as possible, this is probably what you should go for. The parking for the trailhead is actually Sunset Point, so you'll get to see that overlook, and like I mentioned earlier, Wall Street is right below Sunset Point, so you could add that quickly to the trail specs of this hike, and then once you're on the Navajo Loop and Queen's Garden Trail, you will see more beautiful and tight switchbacks framed by tall hoodoos, 2 natural rock bridges below the switchbacks, and all of the beautiful rock structures of Queen's Garden. Next up, we're going to have Mossy Cave, which is northeast of the park. This hike is actually outside of the main park road. From Bryce Canyon City, you have to go back north to Route 12 and then east until you reach the parking lot for Mossy Cave. It's only a 15-minute drive from Ruby's Inn though. This hike is 0.9 miles round trip with 121 feet of elevation gain. This is a very easy hike and the trail is well marked, making it accessible and family friendly. Mossy Cave is the end destination where you can see moss growing on the overhung part of the cave, and when we visited in the spring, we could still see ice stalactites from the dripping water that froze. In my opinion, Mossy Cave was cool, but it wasn't the coolest thing on the trail. My favorite part about this hike is the waterfall and the windows. As you hike the trail, you're going to reach a fork where south leads to Mossy Cave and north leads to the waterfall and the windows, which is where we spent most of our time while visiting. The waterfall is small, but it is beautiful, and the crystal clear water that flows through the rich orange colored rocks is stunning, and it's backdropped by the windows, which are some really awesome rock formations. At number 7, we have Peekaboo Loop, which is another awesome hike that gives you the opportunity to get up close and personal with the hoodoos. If you do this entire hike, it is 5.2 miles with 1,453 feet of elevation gain. However, if you just want to hike some of the trail, you can go as far or as little as you'd like and then just turn around. This hike starts from Bryce Point, so you will get to overlook the entire trail and hoodoos before you start the trail, and then as you descend from the plateau and begin your hike, you will be right along the hoodoos. At number 8, we have another awesome overlook, and that is Rainbow Point. This is at the very southern end of the park, so you will drive the Bryce Canyon Scenic Drive until you can't go any further, and it'll take you straight to Rainbow Point. No hiking is necessary unless you would like to also see Yavimpa Point and Bristlecone Loop. If you do decide to see those, your total hike will be 1.3 miles with 118 feet of elevation gain. Because this is at the end of the road, Rainbow Point is not accessible during the winter months. And next up is Inspiration Point, which is a unique overlook because you will get 3 levels of overlook into the Bryce Amphitheater area. Each level is at a slightly different elevation, but from the parking lot, if you do visit all 3 levels, you're still looking at less than a mile hike in total. If you visit the park in winter and there's a lot of snow closures, this is a great option for something to see. It's in the first few miles of the park road, and I visited Inspiration Point on a few different winter trips, so it's pretty much always accessible and it gives you that classic Bryce Canyon view. Last up but not least is Thor's Hammer, which is a really cool rock structure that looks exactly how it sounds. This rock sticks straight out of the ground and looks like Thor's hammer, just waiting for Chris Hemsworth and the Avengers to come and get it before their next movie. So if you remember, number 5 was Navajo Loop and Queen's Garden Trail, you'll actually see Thor's Hammer on that same trail. I just left it out because it's in the very beginning of the trail, so you don't need to hike the 3.1 miles mentioned earlier to see this. You can see Thor's Hammer from Sunset Point, or if you descend just a few switchbacks, you'll be right under it, which in my opinion is the best way to see it. Anyways, that's going to wrap up this video. I hope you guys liked it and found some value in it. Bryce Canyon is a great place to visit if you're road tripping Utah or trying to see the Mighty 5 parks. I also have top 10s on other parks in Utah, a handful of travel guides, and a bunch of hiking vlogs on the channel. So if you haven't already, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys next time.